What is up, Trend Deluxers? Today we're going to take a look at the stupidest wars to ever be waged. Before we start our journey through the top 10, here's the challenge of today. Tell us what you think about wars in the comments down below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel while you are there. But, without further ado, let's start our top 10. Number 5, The War of the Fleeing Wife, 1879. Okay, so we are able to start our journey around the stupidest wars in history ever with the War of the Fleeing Wife. How may want to it in all likelihood be that one of the most wise folks who has ever lived, Albert Einstein, turned into born in the equal year as one of the stupidest wars ever. I recognize, it's pure twist of fate, but it does show the extraordinary comparison of the 12 months. One amazing man of amazing intelligence coming into the arena within the identical 12 months that us humans discovered, but every other dumbass caused to throw hatchets at one another. The War of the Fleeing Wife has echoes of the Iliad. But where the tragedy of the Greek Iliad turned into a deceitful spouse, this warfare appears to have come all the way down to a spousal dispute, which simply aren't that uncommon. If you're like me, and privy to the old saying, beware the female scorned, you usually maintain your head laying quite low while the spouse isn't all that happy with you. It's regularly best to just agree, admit that you were incorrect, you were wrong, and while the temperature cools down, try and enter the house once more. It's regularly the fine and most secure exercise. But now and again, and really quite a few the time, the male in the relationship is just an abusive prick. In those conditions it's frequently better for the wife to do the strolling, and in no way pass again. Well, this became the premise for the War of the Fleeing Wife in 1879. Two better halves of a Zulu chief Siheo Kakanga ran from their husband. The girls ran and concealed in British-held territory, believing they were safe. The hassle became that the brother and sons of Kakanga pursued the women, taking pictures them and then killing them. The British have been much less than impressed, specifically due to the fact their territory changed into invaded, and following a few ultimatums that have been not noted, went to battle. This becomes certainly part of the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879. Following some bloody encounters, the Zulu were finally crushed, with the lack of over 6,000 Zulus and 1,727 British men. Number 4, The Soccer War, 1969. I wish I don't begin a soccer war via regarding football as soccer. The purist will name it with the aid of football, but in which I am it's extra typically called soccer. Well, believe it or now not, however the soccer war turned into an actual thing, began over a recreation of soccer. Not to be completely surprised, however hooligans at those wearing activities are part and parcel, mainly in jolly antique England. One can hardly ever assume a season to skip by without a few form of football rebel. But the soccer war went just a little too a long way. The soccer war turned into a quick battle among El Salvador and Honduras in 1969. The two South American countries held in global football in shape that El Salvador lost. Not to be referred to as terrible sportsmen, tensions rose between the two countries following this suit, with El Salvador immediately ending all diplomatic members of the family. The tension would ultimately culminate with battle of a army nature. But once more, underlying tensions played a huge part inside the affairs of the day. Principal among them turned into the economic inequality among the two countries. Obviously keeping up with the Joneses changed into a bit difficult to deal with. 18 days later El Salvador began navy motion in opposition to Honduras. Using passenger jets as bombers, they took Honduras through Marvel and made extensive ground. But the ridiculous struggle wasn't going to last lengthy. The Organization of American States fast organized a ceasefire, and hostilities ended handiest 100 hours after the war started out. The soccer war, most of the stupidest wars in records, lasted best 4 days and took the existence of over 3,000 people. Number 3, The War of the Stray Dog, 1925. Proving that medieval stupidity ought to attain the 20th century, we now bring you the tale of the War of the Stray Dog, truly a number of the stupidest wars in records ever. As you may probably already tell, this conflict commenced and became fought over a stray canine. Most folks love puppies. As a puppy and part of our own family they can be incredible companions. Many people often say that they might kill all and sundry who harm their dog. But what about the strays? The ones which are by no means beneath powerful manipulate and simply seem to roam around. They can cause havoc, specifically to farmers who in lots of situations will now not hesitate to kill a stray canine. But is that what passed off here? In 1925 Greece and Bulgaria were like multiple jilted lovers. If they had been to be seen in the equal avenue collectively, both a fight would break out or one could move to the opposite aspect of the stroll. So once again, tensions were high, specifically along a border location known as Petrich, and all that became needed to start a complete blown warfare became a reason, no matter how stupid. On October 22, 1925, a Greek soldier turned into chasing his stray dog. However, it crossed the border into Bulgaria. I bet he should have had a border collie. Now, the Bulgarian sentry noticed this and took goal, however now not on the dog. He shot and killed the Greek soldier who was only chasing his dog. Greece's reaction? Well, shall we simply say that they weren't very satisfied, and threatened revenge. Good to their word, Greece invaded Petrich the very subsequent day, proving another time that the Great War became now not the warfare to cease all wars. The Bulgarian army offered only token resistance, and the Greeks have been best stopped by means of the League of Nations, the forerunner to the UN, who demanded a halt to the hostilities. The outcome of this war of the stray dog was that Greece became compelled out of Bulgaria 10 days later and had to pay them £45,000 in reimbursement. The lack of existence this time changed into exceedingly small as compared to the opposite two, being 52 on each aspects, especially civilians. No one is aware of the destiny of the dog that commenced all of it. Number 2, the War of the Oaken Bucket, 1325. Let stupidity reign. It seems as although the big guys of the political world, aka the colonial wonderful powers, aren't the handiest ones able to mass killing for dumb reasons. This specific warfare takes us lower back to 1325 in northern Italy. Look, I agree. It was known as the Dark Ages for a motive. People weren't that shiny, and this precise struggle proves the factor thoroughly. But how should two acquaintances go and thrash every other's brains out over a alright bucket? That's right, a bloody very well bucket. Alright, simply as with Jenkins' ear, this struggle changed into honestly simply the end result of years, in fact, centuries of activities. Tempers were boiling, and a bloody bucket proved to be the final straw. Two town states in northern Italy, Bologna and Modena, have been long-term competitors. Being within the geographical position that they were in positioned them within the precarious function of getting to aid the principal political factions, and that they were huge ones. One become the Holy Roman Empire, the alternative become the papacy. Obviously politics is an all too not unusual motive for going to battle. In 1325 a few squaddies from Modena entered Bologna and stole an alright bucket from the properly. Bologna turned into a touch pissed at this brazen theft, and decided to visit warfare. Now, I'm no longer calling it an overreaction or something, but how much would an O.K. bucket price to shop for or make? Surely not as lots as raising an army and going to conflict. The town country of Bologna didn't mess around. They were given a military of 32,000 men to begin a march on Modena to reclaim their stolen bucket. The Modenans alternatively were much less enthusiastic, and mustered 7,000 guys for war. The warring factions met at Zappolino, nevertheless in Bologna territory. They fought it out, before the Bologna army had been routed and ran for the protection of their metropolis partitions. So what did each facet get out of this brainless warfare? Well, over a bucket manufactured from wooden, 2,000 men on each facet lost their existence, and the city of Bologna didn't get their bucket returned. In truth, they in no way did, and its miles nonetheless on show in the town of Modena as a taunting reminder of their stolen piece of property. Number 1, the War of Jenkins' Ear, 1739-48. As you can tell, the call of those wars kind of supply away simply how loopy those affairs are. Back inside the appropriate vintage days whilst Britain became the imperial strength of the world, and all bowed earlier than it, foreign relations in Western Europe weren't precisely as cordial as they may be nowadays. To be a little more correct, Spain changed into much less than happy that Britain was top of the roost, and Britain for his or her element had been now not that pleasant to everybody who desired a slice of the movement, or their empire. Let's just say that members of the family among the pair had been frosty, and it wouldn't take much to ignite the keg of conflict. It all started one day in 1731. Robert Jenkins became the captain of a service provider deliver that changed into boarded by way of the Spanish Coast Guard on his return domestic from the West Indies. The Spanish suspected him and his deliver of smuggling, and wanted to analyze. But it appears that evidently they went a bit too aways. They certain Captain Jenkins to a mast and sliced off his ear. Ouch, right? But aside from a diplomatic complaint, it actually must have ended there. But it wasn't going to. On his go-back domestic, Jenkins took his complaint directly to the king, and 7 years later to Parliament. He even kept his ear in a pickle jar. So right here we are. It's now 1738 and relations between the two European powers are virtually no longer that proper. War turned into looming, however there was no correct purpose to choose a combat. But perhaps there was. Although the incident of Jenkins' ear won very little attention when it passed off, in 1738 the British had been seeking out simply motive. This changed into their trigger. The colonies within the Caribbean have been petitioning for guide from their king, and top old Jenkins wanted reprisal for his ear attack. The following summer, King George II, on the recommendation and request of his parliament, ordered the Admiralty to start reprisals towards Spain. The struggle was under manner. Now, this wasn't exactly a complete-out conflict. It was clearly one half-hearted, with neither side really putting their coronary heart and soul into it. It slowly bludgeoned on for nearly a decade, without an actual floor or political advantage going both manner. The war itself didn't honestly give up with a truce, both. It just kind of faded away into the War of Austrian Succession. The Spanish claimed a victory, even though no barriers ever changed. But the numbers have been on their facet. The Spanish suffered 4,500 useless and 5,000 wounded together with the lack of 186 ships. The British lost 20,000 dead, wounded or lacking, and misplaced 407 ships. And it became throughout 1 year. So, Trend Deluxers, that's it for today. To see the later videos, you can turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon right next to the subscribe button. But, until the next one, see you.